Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're going to talk about the worst 1911 that I've purchased. Now, I love 1911 pistols. Yes, I've put one through the gauntlet. Yes, I know that they don't do very well in adverse conditions, but there's just something about the handgun I absolutely love, and I've collected them over the years. Today I've brought out a sample set of some of my most popular, or the ones I shoot the most at least lately, 1911s, and these are ones that I like. Then I'm going to show you the one that I purchased years ago that turned out to be probably one of the worst high-end or mid-tier 1911s I've ever seen. But before we get started with today's video, guys, talking about that worst 1911, if you enjoy the content that we produce here at the Military Arms channel, please take a moment and consider becoming part of our Patreon family. There's a link in the video description below. If you join Patreon, you'll have direct access to me. I answer all private communications. We have other perks as well, so if you would like to do that, please click that link and support us. Also, if you guys enjoy the content that we produce, just take a brief moment to hit that like, share, and subscribe button, and also click that notification bell so you're notified when we post new videos. With all that being said, let's take a look at this abomination of a 1911, and I'm sure it's going to anger a few folks, but I mean it. This is the worst gun I have in terms of a 1911. So let me preface this conversation with saying that I have very specific tastes in 1911s. I don't go out and buy $500 guns made in the Philippines. I know that there's a high chance that there's going to be a problem with a gun like that. Now, I know a lot of you are going to say, I have my, Philippine 1911. It's the best 1911 I've ever owned. I've seen plenty of them have problems. I work at a gun shop at times. So they're not the best 1911s out there. If you're looking at buying a 1911, you really should consider mid-tier guns. And by mid-tier, I mean guns that have somebody that knows what they're doing assembling them. You can spit the parts out on a CNC machine, but it takes certain hand fitting on critical areas for those guns to work optimally. Pardon me, guys, I have a head cold or something going on. Anyway, so if you're going to get a gun that's going to be amazing, it's going to have the right feel, the right tension on the safety, a great trigger, a very smooth action when you operate the slide, you're going to have to spend a little bit of money and get one of the mid-tier guns, or you can go all the way up to Nighthawk Customs or Gun Crafters and pay a lot of extra money for the gun and really get a nice pistol. So with that being said, the gun that I think is the worst one that I've purchased falls in that mid-tier category. A lot of people out there love the company, but this gun was a complete hot mess. And there's a couple of different reasons for that, which we'll get into. But as an example, some of the 1911s that I like to own and shoot they're sitting here in front of me. And this is by no means, a comprehensive breakdown of my 1911 collection. It's pretty substantial. But here we have a Colt manufactured. It's a rail gun, but this is the M45A1. This is the commercial version that Colt made well after the production run for the USMC was done, and these are known to have some issues. You have to be careful when you buy one of these that you get the right version of it, because they do have frame cracking problems and things like that. But this gun, Colt, historically has generally made good 1911s. They've ran into some problems as of late, but if you get older Colts, good guns. I just have this one because it's USMC type of handgun, and that one actually shoots and has a good fitment to it. But the gun I think that is my favorite is my Dan Wesson Specialist. This one's in 10mm. The Colt is in 45 ACP. And just Dan Wesson in general. You've seen me shooting the Brune and other types of Dan Wesson 1911s. In terms of a mid-tier handgun, you simply can't beat these. If somebody asks me what 1911 should I buy, I say, go buy Dan Wesson. It's going to cost you anywhere between $1,300 to $1,500, depending on what model you get. But it's money well spent. The guns are going to absolutely work. They're going to have beautiful fitment. And some of the things on 1911s that you want to check is when you have the gun with the slide home in battery, push down on the hood, there should be no movement there. There should be a very positive click on the detent for the safety. It shouldn't be too tight. It shouldn't be too sloppy. Should have a nice crisp trigger pull with no over travel, and the slide should move very easy on the frame. All of which is true of every Dan Wesson I've ever touched. So Dan Wesson is kind of my favorite mid-tier 1911 that I gauge all other guns against. Then you can step up to something that's truly a custom gun or a semi-custom gun like Wilson Combat, for example. They're a custom gun shop, but you pretty much order from a menu these days. There was a time when they did completely custom work, and they may still, but their bread and butter is the semi-custom. And the semi-custom means it's a menu of things that they have available, and you pick from the menu, and that's what you get. but a true custom shop will make whatever gun you want. You know, barrel length, stippling, specifications, whatever. That's a true custom shop. Well, Gun Crafters is a custom shop, and this is their no-name 1911, which is kind of funny. They say the gun is so iconic, it doesn't need a name. It's the 1911. And this is one of my favorite carry guns. It's a beautiful 1911. This one's chambered in 45 ACP. Again, perfect fitment, and it should because of the guns laid out here on the table. This is the most expensive of the three, but this would represent the higher end of the guns. Ed Brown, Les Baer, Gun Crafters, Wilson Combat. Those are your upper end, and Nighthawk. Those are your upper end 1911 manufacturers. All of these guns, with the Colt being the exception, all these guns are exceptional. The Colt, a little bit sloppy in the safety, but it's still a really, really good gun. At least this one has been for me, and I've shot that one quite a bit. Before we get into what my worst 1911 is that I've purchased, I want to ask you guys questions. Many years ago, I did a video called The Knives of the Military Arms Channel, and it got quite a bit of views for back then, and I've never really done an update video. Now, I am a knife guy. I enjoy knives. I enjoy, having a nice piece of cutlery in my pocket, but I'm not an expert when it comes to knives. I have a tendency just to impulsively buy knives, and I've kind of gravitated towards knives like Microtech and things like that. And I really love automatic knives, and that's because our state legalized them many years ago, and when they did, I just started buying a bunch of them. And so over the years, I've accumulated a pretty substantial knife collection, but a lot of my knives are in that modest price range of like Kershaw's. I like Zero Tolerance, Microtech, which is kind of high end for me, but I know you true knife guys would say that a $300 Microtech is not even close to being a high end knife, but to a person like me, it is. Recently, I picked up a couple of Scallywag tactical knives. I was on their site, noticed they're having a half off sale basically, so you can get 2 knives for the price of 1. And I wanted to see what you guys thought. And if you think that it would be interesting to you guys if I made a Knives of the Military Arms Channel Part 2, if so, comment down below. But let's take a look at a couple of knives that I just recently acquired. So this is the Spindrift 2.0. The presentation on these Scallywag knives are pretty nice. Now, I looked up Scallywag online. It seems that they have a pretty decent following out there. And the Spindrift 2.0, it was designed by Gary Customs and manufactured by Scallywag, and it just has a beautiful finish on it, G10 grips, D2 steel on the blade. It's a nice lightweight fixed blade knife. When you hold it, it just has a very, very good feel to it with that Tonto style blade. Very sharp, nice, and again, it comes with that scabbard that you can adjust for different belt sizes. So I really like this particular knife. It comes with a little bit of history on the card that came in the box. And yeah, thought that knife was pretty darn cool. And it was on sale on their website for $140, and its regular price was $295, so literally half off. The next one I picked up, again, half off. This one was $149, regularly $300, is the Valhalla. Cool name. And on their website, it's considered one of the OG Scallywag tactical blades, but this is a beast. It's almost like a huge straight razor, but I did find out they sell straight razors as well. But once again, this one has a PVD finish on it, nice grip, nice straight blade, has a fuller running all the way out, and razor stinking sharp. This would be a great knife to keep in the Jeep, and that's probably what I'm going to do with this one. Once again, it's shipped with the Kydex sheath, and it's adjustable for different belt sizes. So anyway, let me know in the comments down below if you guys would like to see more videos about knives. Again, I'm by no means an expert. I could probably learn more from you than I could teach you about them. But comment down below. Tell me what you think about Scallywag. And if you want to, swing by and check out their website right now, because again, they're having that half off sale, which I think is a great deal. All right, what I'm about to say is going to upset a good number of you potentially. So if you have a dog that you like to pet, please go get the dog now before you go any further in the video. If there's a 1-800 number you need to call, please call that number now. Have that operator standing by, because I'm about to offend somebody. The worst mid-tier semi-custom, and I use that phrase reluctantly, 1911 I've purchased is a Kimber. And now many of you who follow the channel going way back, you know that I've had problems with Kimber handguns for a long time. They're not the highest quality 1911 in my experience. Now, I know a lot of you out there are going to say, oh man, 1911s made by Kimber are the best it's ever been. And there would be a certain point in Kimber's history where I would agree with you. When Kimber started up in Clackamas, Oregon, the guns that they produced were outstanding. They actually offered a lot for the amount of money that they were asking for them at the time. When Colt was just doing standard 1911s, most everybody was just doing standard 1911s, Kimber in Clackamas, Oregon was putting out semi-custom guns with custom type features for a very affordable price. But then they got acquired by a big conglomerate, moved to New York, and then it just kind of unraveled from there. The same person that ran SIG into the ground ran Kimber into the ground, and his name's Ron Cohen. But let's not get too far into that rabbit hole. There's a specific model that I purchased that just baffles my mind. And we'll get into that here in the video. But that specific model is the SIS. Some of you may already know why I'm going to pick on this pistol. Now, as I talked about already, early Clackamas, Oregon made guns, great quality. The quality slipped. So there's a lot of reasons over the years that I've just not liked Kimbers. There was a time when they were just putting carbon steel barrels in their guns and they were shipping them. My gun store got a big shipment of them in and they had rust all over every single barrel in the shipment and they had to send them all back. Now the barrel in this is stainless steel, but there's an interesting story behind the SIS pistol. So SIS is a unit within the LAPD. It's the Special Investigative Section, and they're tasked with, they were around 1965, they were assembled, let's say, to deal with some of the most violent criminals in Los Angeles County. And so they became known as the gunfighters of the LAPD. Now, the LAPD SWAT team is very prestigious. It kind of set the stage for SWAT teams around the country. And the LAPD was using 1911s and 45 ACP. Now, the SIS unit was also doing its own thing. So when the LAPD went to the Model 92 Beretta, for example, they went to the Smith & Wesson 645, sticking with that 45 ACP, just like the LAPD. And much like the Marine Corps continued to use the 1911 all the way up until modern times, and the last of those being the M45A1, but there was a time when Kimber made the Det 1 for the Marine Corps as well. So the SIS unit went to Kimber, and there were certain officers within the SIS unit that came up with a wish list of features that they wanted on their gun. Now, the quality of this gun is typical for a 2008 to 2010 era Kimber. It's spotty at best. If you take a look, this gun's had very, very little use. But if you take a look at the finish on the slide stop safety here, you'll notice it's just rubbing off, and that's just from sitting in the box for years and years. There's a chip in the finish. The finish itself is called Chem Pro 2, and this, coupled with the SIS serrations, you'll notice has SIS for Special Investigative Section in the serrations. They're very shallow, not sharp, and if you have the hammer down, the Chem Pro 2 finish, Kimber would advertise as being self-lubricating, and they weren't kidding. My hands are completely dry, but just trying to pull the slide to the rear and get it to lock back with the hammer down is very, very difficult. If my hands were wet, bloody, oily, whatever, muddy, me trying to operate this slide, even using the serrations, my hand wants to slip off. It would be 10 times worse if my hands, again, had anything on them other than being completely dry. Clearing a malfunction would be a nightmare with this handgun. But the SIS unit wanted to have certain features on the gun. Not only they wanted their little SIS engraved into the slide for slide serrations, they wanted the Chem Pro 2 finish, which I think is absolutely horrendous. And they wanted the top of the gun to be machined flat. They wanted the rear sight set so that it would have a ledge on it so it could be cocked off blue jeans, a belt, a desk, whatever, which will probably be quite handy given the rather awful nature of the Chem Pro 2 finish. Has night sights on it. Again, that flat top, which is nice, and it has these stylized wood grips, flat mainspring housing, raised grip safety, unique profile, skeletonized hammer. And what's interesting about this particular pistol, I believe there are 4 different models made. This one is the light rail model that has a 1913 rail underneath it. They made one without a rail, and they made a couple of compact carry guns, like a commander size and I believe a subcompact version of the gun. What's interesting is the gun wasn't officially adopted by SIS. It was just approved by the department for use. So the individual officers would have to go out and buy these guns from Kimber. Read an article out there somewhere that the CIS unit got angry with Kimber for selling them to the civilian world and threatened to yank the contract if they continued to sell them to civilians. I don't know how true that is. I also read another article that said that there was some community outrage over the fact that CIS was engraved into the gun. They thought it was a bit braggadocious, that it was inappropriate for police departments to do such things. What would happen if somebody were actually shot with one of these guns? It would look bad in court. What would happen if one of these guns that were sold to civilians was used to, shoot an officer? That would have bad optics. So there was some community outrage over the whole thing. But just in general, this gun exhibits the lackluster quality of Kimber 1911s from that era, being 2008 to 2010. It's just okay. Why a gunfighter unit would choose to have something with a super slick finish on it, very shallow, non-sharp serrations, is a mystery to me. And so this is that 1911. See, look at that. Usually with a 1911, you can push down on the hammer and push in the grip safety by doing so, but the profile of the hammer keeps it from doing that. And you can, thumb down the hammer. If I grab one of my other 1911s, if I want to thumb it down, just push down the grip and I can release it and drop the hammer. With this one, I can't. I can push down this as hard as I want, pull the trigger, it's not going to release. I have to do it that way, and it actually slipped because the hammer slipped. Again, just, oh man, it's just not a gun I'd want to shoot. It's certainly not a gun I would carry. Another interesting piece of history. So the CIS unit wanted the gun not to have what's commonly referred to as a Swartz safety or a internal safety, firing pin safety that the Series 80 Colts came out with back in the day. And basically it's a lever on the lower receiver that when you pull the trigger, a little bar goes up, pushes the plunger up in the slide that then releases the firing pin so it can travel. They wanted the crisper, nicer trigger that 1911s are said to have when that safety is not present. So after they went through the whole development cycle and had the guns made, the California Department of Justice got involved and said, you can't see, and that's the other thing that drives me nuts. I have to push down on the slide stop to get it to clear the slide when I take it apart. Just poor fitment. And a good 1911, you shouldn't have to do things like that. I know it's nitpicky, but I have very specific tastes in 1911s, and this thing just missed the mark. But you'll see there's no safety on it. I'll show you a picture of what the safety looks like. So what's interesting is the CIS unit, when they ordered the guns, they wanted to start taking delivery of them. The Department of Justice stepped in and said, that doesn't meet the California roster. California had passed all sorts of ridiculous laws, and one of which is that guns must have that internal firing pin safety. So this was not legal even for their own officers to use. So they had to get them with the internal safety. But the gun like I have here, which is a commercial gun, does not have that safety in it. Kimber would go ahead and sell those guns to the civilian world without the safety, but the actual CIS officers would get the ones with the safety. So that's it. That's my least favorite semi-custom. I expected so much more of this gun. When I ordered it, I didn't expect it to be slick as snot. Again, the fitment is just marginal at best. The finish is easily worn, and it's just not good. It was a waste of money. I could have spent that gun, money on this gun on something like a Dan Wesson and got twice the pistol. So I look forward to your comments down below, guys. I know you're going to be very opinionated. Kimber has a cult-like following, as do most gun companies. Feel free to rip me apart in the comments, but I don't own very many Kimbers because I've had so many problems with them over the years. I just quit buying them, gosh, over a decade ago. I think this was the last one I purchased. So anyway, comment down below. Guys, if you'd like to support us here at the Military Arms Channel, even if you are a big Kimber fan, please consider becoming a Patreon supporter. There's a link in the video description below. Also, right here underneath the little video player you're watching right now, there's a join button. Mash that join button. You can support us right here on YouTube in the age of demonetization. And last but not least, guys, please swing by and check out coppercustom.com. Thank you for 13 years of support, and we'll talk to you guys soon.